اوكي. طيب نكمل الستوري اللي كنا بلشناها امبارح او اول امبارح اكشلي. وقفنا عند اعتقد هذا السلايد. اوكي، كان بيتكلم عن example من synthetic pathways او metabolic pathways المتعلقه بالproduction of certain hormones. وهذا المثال بناخذه لانه it's very interesting from the point of view of location and steps during the preparation of such hormone. So if we are in the thyroid gland, we have two sites اللي هو secretory site اللي راح يكون قريب من الكانالز اللي بيعملوا secretion للبلد stream as an endocrine system, and we have here the site of the lumen of the gland itself. And here actually most of the process is going to be conducted, reactions اللي بيصيروا. So we have protein اسمه thyroglobulin which is localized at this site, and it's responsible for the preparation of the thyroid hormone molecules and derivatives of these hormones. لأنه إحنا بالنسبة لنا the active forms اللي هم T3 T4 as thyroid or thyroxine hormones, while the others will be the metabolites that will be generated during the preparation لأن عملية التحضير للactive form. So first of all, in order to build such structure, you need the thyroglobulin as protein, which is normally synthesized by transcription, translation, sorting, and then excretion of that protein. And after that, we have also conjugation of the iodine that will be converted from the ionic form to the iodine molecule by oxidation process, and there is peroxidase activity in this site in order to prepare the metal form of the iodine. And the conjugation of the iodine with مش الثايروجلوبولين بحد ذاته ولكن التيروسين derivative of the thyroxine in the future. So we have process of iodination. Iodination, it means that you are going to add the iodine to the جاز التعبير thyroxine forms or pre-thyroid hormones. So then after the preparation of the complex there will be a process of pinocytosis. البينوسايتوسيس بتطلب وجود receptors معينين and special texture in the, if you would, the cytoplasmic site of the membrane itself. عشان نعمل endocytosis في ميكانيزم معقدة تتطلب هذا الشيء. أبسطها receptors للثايروجلوبولين itself, and then the penetration and doing the process of pinocytosis. هلا ليش مسمينها phagocytosis? Because it's most of the components will be liquid components. And inside we will have what's called colloid droplets. هذا a simple demonstration للprocess. And we have another action of what's called protease activity. راح تحطم الكومبوننتس اللي احنا بدنا اياها للمستقبل. For example, the thyroxine hormones will be secreted outside, such as T3, T4, and what's called reverse T3 اللي هو شكل آخر من أشكال T3 hormone. The rest اللي هم المونو والداي. مونو داي معناها إنه مش T3 ولا T4، بمعنى آخر مش 3 iodine ولا 4 iodine. They are just either 1 iodine or 2 iodine molecules on the pre-thyroxine form that will be going to be metabolized again and recycled in order to be used in another cycle. هذا اللي بصير بالثايرويد gland in order to prepare our thyroid hormones. So the processes are here. So we have synthesis of thyroglobulin protein, pumping of the ions of the iodine, oxidation in order to have iodine metal. Organification means that you are conjugating iodine with the thyroglobulin in the form of mono or di forms, and the rest of the mechanism will be conducted there. Okay, so what are these M or D or thyroxine or T3, T4, and RT3? Tyrosine is the precursor for the thyroxine, basically, and you have to conjugate another thyroxine or tyrosine molecule in order to prepare your active thyroxine or thyroid hormones. So basically, when you have these structures, the starting one is the tyrosine amino acid, and when you have just one iodine added, it will be mono. For example, ايودوتيروسين وجاي على البوزيشن رقم 3 عشان يقسموه 3 مونو. لما بيكونوا ثنتين بيكون اسمه الداي. If you conjugate one more tyrosine at the same site اللي هو lumen site, it will be T3 because you have 3 iodines that are added. إذا بتغير البوزيشن تبعهم, instead of having for example position 3 و5 و3 أو سوري 3 5 and 3 بيسموه 3 برايم هذا أو 3 برايم. هلا الريفرس فورم او الار فورم اللي هو البوزيشن مختلف, ال 3 برايم 5 برايم will be iodinated and the 3 carbon of the tyrosine will be iodinated. So it's just different distribution of the iodine on the thyroxine hormone. هلا T4 اللي هو less active one اللي هو completely iodinated form, and sometimes it will be de-iodinated in order to have the T3 form اللي هو most active one. So what's going to happen inside the cell, the target cell اللي بيروح عليها الثايروكسين هرمون أو الثايرويد هرمون, if it's T4, it's going to be de-iodinated process, like for example, either 5' or 3' mono deiodinase enzyme that removes one of the iodines in order to have T3 or to have RT3 form اللي هم potent thyroxine hormones. I think we discussed this before, اللي هو التيروسين as an example of being more than يعني for more than one fate. جزء ممكن يصنع عندنا ثايروكسين في فانكشن اخر بيصنع لنا مجموعه من الهرمونز اللي هم derivative من التيروسين. For example, the hydroxylation process will give you a dopa structure, and the dopamine will be performed or formed due to decarboxylation step. Another hydroxylation راح يعطينا norepinephrine, and methyltransferase process will give you الepinephrine اللي هم usually produced by adrenal glands. So tyrosine is one of the multi-purpose, if you would, metabolite for the future synthesis of certain hormones, and they are completely different hormones. هذا السلايد لانه مكرر اكثر من مره عشان هيك just skip it. If we want, actually you have to know, if you want, you have to know that the steroid hormones, whether they are androgens or estrogens, or for example if you have progesterone corticoids hormones, you have to know and remember always they are derived from the cholesterol molecule, and the difference is in the number of the carbons and the metabolism process of these structures. For example, البروجسترون corticoids عندهم 21 كربون compared with the aldosterones اللي هم بعطونا الاندروجينز in the future just 19 carbons. If it's less one carbon, it will be estrogens as an example of the derivatives of the steroid hormones in the male and female structures. هذا السلايد راح يتكرر اليوم او بعرفش اذا اليوم راح نلحق نشوف الجزء الثاني من المحاضره اللي هو بالباوربوينت رقم 2 اللي هو بيتكلم عن البيوسينثيسيس اوف ستيرويد هرمونز. هلا للامانه اتس فيري لونج بروسيس، وهذول عباره عن جست شورت كاتس للباثوي. اتس فيري لونج باثوي starting from the cholesterol as a precursor that's going to be converted to these products اللي هو pregnenolone for example, progesterone, and eventually it will produce corticosterone hormone. On the other hand, it could generate cortisol, and we have two pathways for that one, starting from the pregnenolone as a derivative or progesterone, and eventually you will have cortisol as another option of the production of the steroid hormones derived from the cholesterol at the beginning. So it's associated with the adrenal gland function. And that's why we are talking about zona fasciculata or reticularis. We have two layers that are producing these hormones depending on the product that we're going to have. On the other hand, we have androstenedione for hormone or dihydroxyandrosterone hormone. These are also other examples of the steroid hormones. They are produced by these layers. هلا الجزء الثاني من PowerPoint راح تكون الامور اوضح شوي بالنسبه لللوكيشن. The aldosterone itself is secreted in another layer of the adrenal gland, but as well as some kind of similar pathway, but the layer is different, is called glomerulosa. Eventually it will produce الالدوستيرون. بتذكر بال 2014 احد الطلاب كان مميزين جدا بقول لي طيب بعدين يعني بالنهايه شو بدك مننا؟ فبضل اتذكر سؤاله دائما. Just to know انه ال eventual product where it's going to be formed وين راح يتكون. اوكي. وفي عندنا common precursor بالنص هون. Just remember ان we have always these intermediates سواء كان بالجلوميروزا or reticularis layers in the adrenal gland. As an example of the metabolism of the hormones in peripheral tissues like the liver, for example, this slide describes the hepatic metabolism of cortisol itself, what's going to be converted in the future. So we have other forms or other active forms of the cortisol. For example, tetrahydrocortisol is another active form of the cortisol itself, as well as conjugation of the tetracortisol. Conjugation معناها بنضيف عليه carbohydrate molecule as another derivative سواء كان cortisol molecule or corticosterone. There is a difference in the structure, basically depends on the number of the carbons as well as the functional groups. أنا ما بدي تعرف the structure itself. I will not ask you about the definite structure of these molecules, just to know that we have option of metabolism or generation of new metabolites from the cortisol inside the liver as an example إذا كان هو التارجت. اوكي هذا السلايد حكينا عنه قبل شوي. الانسولين ريسبتور حكينا عنه. This is just general demonstration of one of the common hormones that we know and we are familiar with اللي هو الانسولين. For example, what's the impact of insulin on, for example, the glucose metabolism and lipid metabolism. So basically, the insulin is activating the glycolysis process as well as formation of cholesterol eventually, because you will form or you will have a lot of acetyl-CoA molecules, as well as formation of fatty acids or triglycerides, and you are inhibiting the formation of, for example, of ketone bodies. So if you have high insulin concentration, it means that you have good amount of nutrients. One of them is the glucose and the other thing is the lipids. ففي هاي الحالة you are not going to break down the lipids بوجود الانسولين. So the activated pathways by the action of the insulin hormone will be like the following. Glycolysis is going to be activated, breakdown of glucose, as well as glycogen synthesis itself, because you want to store the glycogen. بس لأنه كميات محدودة, you have another option اللي هو lipid synthesis. So there will be activation of lipid formation under the presence of the insulin. So it means that you are empowering the process of well-fed state. well-fed state معناها عندك nutrients. فعشان هيك الهرمونز اللي بتكون أفرزت في هذاك الوقت, they are also supporting the storage mechanism. The storage mechanism, you are going to be fat eventually because you are storing lipids, for example. So this is one of the actions of the insulin, unless we have diabetic condition due to resistance. There will be kind of different metabolic pathways. The cholesterol itself is also will be generated from the acetyl-CoA that is produced by the glycolysis itself. So this is just an example of the insulin hormone, which will be reverted by glucagon, by the way. الجلوكاجون بيشتغل بالعكس. فليش بحب اذكر هذا المثال؟ لانه الجلايكوليسيس is catabolic pathway, breakdown of glucose, بينما الجلايكوجين synthesis is anabolic 1, cholesterol is anabolic 1, fatty acid او lipids anabolic 1. فالانسولين in general is stimulating الانابolic pathways except الجلايكوجين او الجلايكوليسيس اللي هي catabolic 1, لانه الهدف اصلا من الانسولين اللي هو transportation of glucose and consumption of that glucose. This is also repetition. في صوت عمال بيطلع، اللي بيحكوا مع بعض بس وطوا صوتكم أو أجلوها شوي. Example على الكليفج والefficiency of production of many hormones from one polypeptide as an efficient way of the production of many hormones at the same time. لأن ممكن يكون لهم تداخلات بالمستقبل in which one is going to regulate or feedback regulate the other hormone. هذا بشكل بسيط جدا بتكلم عن الميكانيزمز اللي بتعمل activation للفيتامين D for example which is the 25 hydroxyl cholecalciferol structure which is the active form, and this process requires two tissues: skin, because it's going to convert it to vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol through the action of the UV light, and then for sure you have to have vitamin B precursor itself as a diet source سواء هون او هون. ممكن انت تاخذ اصلا الفيتامين D3 as a supplement. And in the liver there will be a process of hydroxylation in order to have the active form that is going to do the function in the future by further activation. احنا بنعرف most active or most potent one اللي هو 125 hydroxyl calciferol اللي هو معروف باسم الكالسيفرول structure. So this is the most potent one and the most active one. اوكي، هلا السلايدات الثانيه اللي هي يفترض محاضره رقم 2 ما فيش differences كثيره, just kind of repetition in another way. وهم تتكلم عن synthesis والmodification. اوكي, ومين اللي راح نرد على الستيرويد هرمونز. Some hormones need to be synthesized before the action. بمعنى آخر they are already in the cells and stored there وبصير لهم secretion when there is a stimulator. Some other hormones are going to be synthesized upon the action or the stimulator. So we have different options in order to produce our active or our hormones actually. هلا الكوليسترول ليش بنحكي عنه كثير؟ لانه بعطينا options كثيره, خيارات كثيره. They are like dozens of hormones can be produced from the cholesterol and they are known as steroid hormones. Some of them are formed in the adrenal gland, so they are known as adrenal steroid hormones or adrenal steroidogenesis hormones, and this is the option for the starting step of the steroidogenesis. So the precursor is always the cholesterol, and the first step in the adrenal gland is generation of what's called pregnenolone form after the cleavage of the hydrocarbon chain from the cholesterol, and this will be the second precursor for many other choices in the future depending on the location, for example. So these are the steroid hormones that are common in our body. Estradiol, for example, testosterone, cortisol, progesterone. You are, I think, familiar with the action of these hormones, and these are the differences between them, number of the carbons as well as the functional group on these hormones. هلا قلت لكم قبل شوي انه it will be more clear in the next slides, and this is what I meant. In the zona fasciculata, for example, we are going to form cortisol and corticosteroid or corticosterone hormones. So this is the site of the synthesis, and you notice here, if you notice actually, the common precursor اللي هو secondary precursor اللي حكيت عنه, and all of these mechanisms require action of cytochrome system inside the adrenocortical gland or adrenocorticotropic hormone glands. The second choice is formation of aldosterone as another example. This is just example of the zona glomerulatus. In the zona reticularis, we are forming what's called androstenedione hormone and DHEAS. It's also another kind of female hormone actually, which is crucial during the pregnancy, sometimes marker and many other metabolic pathways. So the precursor is always cholesterol, but you have also common intermediate precursors in between depending on the action of the hormones in each layer of the adrenal gland. This is another also demonstration how the process is going to be conducted. So we have these enzymes that are doing, for example, hydroxylation and lysase activity, and another hydroxylation process to other positions بيعتمد على الكربون اللي بنعمل hydroxylation, for example. So that's why we have different numbers here. بس كلهم جزء من complex. إذا بتلاحظ هون هذا الرقم هو عبارة عن cytochrome systems. So they will be part of the cytochrome system. ما بهمني الباثوي بتفاصيلها, just to know the position or location of the steroidogenesis in each layer of the adrenal gland. This is just another بنحب نفصلهم احنا بنقول عنهم glucocorticoid hormones or synthesis process. الاندروجينز لانه لهم اكشن مختلف مش corticotropic hormones, so they have different pathway. هلا هذا كله كان بالادرينال gland. So we have other organs actually that are doing steroidogenesis, like testicular glands, especially in the Leydig cells. They have similar function of the steroid metabolism in order to produce eventually the testosterone, because it's in the male organ rather than being in the adrenal gland. Some peripheral tissues actually can make dihydrotestosterone from the testosterone, and the dihydrotestosterone is the active form of the testosterone itself. So the testosterone is just the precursor for the active form in the future. And the enzyme that is responsible for this is called 5-alpha reductase enzyme, and it requires a reducing agent as a cofactor, who is an ADPH reducing agent. So this is the active form of the testosterone. That's why if we have like deficiency in this enzyme, there will be no action of the testosterone itself in the peripheral tissues themselves. بمعنى آخر testosterone لما يروح على السيل, it has to be activated in the target cells. As the testicular steroidogenesis, we have also ovarian steroidogenesis. It means that female organs are responsible for the steroid hormone synthesis, but they will be different steroid hormones, like estradiols, for example. And we have two types of cells, all theca cells in the ovarian organ that is forming androstenedione and testosterone. So we have certain concentration of testosterone in females, and the granulosa cells converts androstenedione and testosterone to estrogen or estrogens actually, and estradiol forms, which are the female hormones compared with the male one. And this is the process itself. If we compare, for example, the female process here with the male process, if we have testes or if we have ovaries. Progesterone is also synthesized in a special structure in the ovary, اللي هو corpus luteus, during the process of pregnancy. So progesterone is very important hormone during the pregnancy process. الفيتامين دي زي ما حكينا بدي بس نركز على انه الستركتشر الاكتف اللي هو 125 هيدروكسيل كالسيفيرول اللي هو فورم من الفورمز تبعون فيتامين دي. This is again a synthesis of the active form through the two organs, mainly skin and the liver, as well as the kidney is also responsible for production of one more form of the calciferol or vitamin D structure. And that's all.